The world teeters on a precipice of its own making, armed with weapons capable of erasing civilization in an afternoon. This is not a speculative fiction but the grim reality presented through the eyes of a former nuclear war planner. The journey begins not with the mushroom clouds of Hiroshima, but decades earlier, with a fundamental shift in the morality of warfare. The advent of strategic bombing in the 1930s, epitomized by the destruction of Guernica, shattered the ancient principle of protecting civilians. This deliberate targeting of city centers to break a nation's will become a horrifying new normal, escalating through the firebombings of World War II and setting a direct precedent for the atomic age. The bomb was not an aberration. It was the ultimate extension of a doctrine that viewed entire populations as legitimate targets. As a young student, the author grappled with theoretical articles about city-destroying weapons, little knowing that scientists were already turning theory into apocalyptic reality with the Manhattan Project. The initial drive was born of fear, to deter a Nazi regime from acquiring such power first. This logic of deterrence, the idea that possessing a horrific weapon prevents its use, became the bedrock of Cold War policy. It was this very logic that drew the author into the heart of the machine, working as an analyst for the Rand Corporation. The mission felt noble, to design a system so stable that it would forever prevent nuclear war. The 1957 launch of Sputnik was a seismic shock, proving the Soviet Union could deliver warheads across oceans in minutes, making the quest for a fail-safe deterrent seem all the more urgent. However, a deep dive into the actual command and control procedures revealed a nightmare of institutionalized recklessness. The system was not built for careful deliberation but for lightning-fast retaliation. The terrifying discovery was that the power to start a nuclear war was not solely in the hands of the president, locked away in the famous football. Delegation of authority had spread, like a virus, down the chain of command to numerous military officers, a contingency for a communications breakdown that made an authorized launch a tangible possibility. Even more alarming was the absence of a reliable stop command. Once bombers were airborne or missiles were set in motion, the process was essentially irreversible, even if the initial order was based on a false radar blip or a tragic mistake. The so-called two-man rule was often circumvented for the sake of speed, and the entire apparatus prioritized launching on warning over verifying a threat. Confronted with these flaws, the author embarked on a desperate campaign to reform the system from within, proposing a more restrained strategy focused on military targets, the preservation of command structures to negotiate an end to conflict, and the critical implementation of a recall capability. While some measures were adopted, the core existential danger remained, and was nearly realized during the Cuban Missile Crisis. That 13-day standoff is revealed not as a cool, calculated game of brinkmanship, but as a period of sheer terror and chaotic improvisation, where luck played as great a role as strategy in averting annihilation. The world survived by a thread, yet the machines of doom were not dismantled. They were expanded and made more efficient. The central, haunting metaphor is that of the Doomsday machine, a system designed to deter by guaranteeing mutual destruction, but one that is automated, error-prone, and ultimately beyond full human control. It is a machine that has escaped its creators. The conclusion is not one of despair, but a clarion call for awareness. The greatest danger lies in public complacency, in the comforting but false belief that these weapons are safely managed by rational actors. The history of near misses and systemic fragility proves otherwise. True security cannot be found in the threat of omnicide. The only path forward is a radical one, the gradual, verifiable dismantling of these arsenals, driven by an informed citizenry that demands its leaders step back from the brink. The final warning is that as long as these machines exist, our continued existence relies less on wisdom and more on a grace period that cannot last forever.